Oh, yes.
Welcome back, everyone. Today we'll be taking a look at the brand new Transformers War for Cybertron Kingdom Maximal T-Wrecks. T-Wrecks is a Target exclusive here in the US, and he is a direct redeco of the Kingdom Beast Megatron toy. For anybody not familiar with the character, T-Wrecks was originally released in the Beast Machines toy line as a direct redeco of the Beast Wars Megatron, so obviously this redeco is very fitting. And while in that toy line he was depicted as one of kind of the new age Maximals of the Beast Machines era, here he's just shown as a standard like Beast Wars Maximal. And I don't know what the intended, story behind that is, if they really ever thought that far into it. But it is a nice little homage to a relatively obscure figure. Not everybody knows about T-Rex. This toy is also a bit of an oddity because he was expected to have an alternate face sculpt. And in fact, I think some promotional renders actually showed the alternate face sculpt of a more gridded teeth style, akin to the original toy. And unfortunately, the final product doesn't have that. It just carries over the same closed mouth face from the Megatron toy, which leads to a bit of an issue because they use silver paint on his face to paint where the teeth should be, but his lips are closed. So instead, he just gets some silver lipstick on his upper lip. So kind of goofy looking. From a distance, it does look like his mouth's still a little bit open, like he's grimacing a bit. But yeah, that really is a shame. Of course, we'll get a better look at all that once we open him up and, talk more in depth about his colors and all that. So anyway, if you've seen my reviews before, you know how this goes. We're going to take a look at T-Rex's packaging, then we'll open it up. We'll see his instructions. I don't believe this guy comes with a golden disc card because he's an exclusive and they don't want to kind of tie one of the cards behind that. So it's unfortunate, but I get why they would do it. And then of course we'll see T-Rex himself in both his beast and robot modes. I'll be doing quite a few group shots and comparisons today with the original T-Rex, with the new Megatron, all that stuff. And then of course at the end of the video, I'll give my final thoughts. So T-Rex comes in your standard leader class packaging for the Kingdom subline. And there's no special callouts to Target or anything because in international markets, he's not an exclusive there. One thing I really like about this is that his artwork for both the Beast mode and the Robot mode is all new. They didn't just take the Megatron artwork and recolor it, which is something they do with a lot of exclusives because they tend to be kind of low-budget cash grabs. But no, they actually went out of their way to make original art for both modes, which I think is great. And I really love the T-Rex art. That looks menacing. I dig that. And even the robot art is pretty cool too. It looks very heroic there. It's similar to Megatron's art, but he's posed differently, and he seems less sinister and more just battle-hardened. So I dig the vibes there. The top, just your standard Kingdom stuff. Then around on the back, you get renders for the toy, and here it is. This is the little gridded teeth mouth that the toy was supposed to come with. So I'm really, really disappointed that it didn't because, for one, it would have helped set him apart from Megatron, but also now he has weird lipstick thing going on. So I hate that. I wish Hasbro would kind of comment on what happened there, but I doubt they will. I mean, I don't think they even officially revealed this guy, did they? I think Target did. No, they did. But still, some sort of info on what happened would have been nice. You can see the toy takes 27 steps to transform, so fairly complicated, though not on the higher end for leader class toys. And then you also get the cool little T-Rex cave painting thing going on there. And then here on the side, naturally, you get your standard Kingdom side panel. Okay, here's our instruction book for T-Rex. They call them, Maximal T-Rex down here. Got a render, Maximal symbol, logo, all that fun stuff. Open this up, you get a render of the robot so that you can transform him into beast mode. Pretty cut and dry. And then finished product. There's no accessories or anything on this, version of the character, so just straight into the point. And now here's T-Rex in his dinosaur mode. And you can see he's done up in primarily, a kind of organic, almost clay-like red with a very metallic blue striping pattern on the back there, so that's pretty neat. He's got yellow eyes and very silver looking teeth along with gray claws, so definitely not what you'd consider a natural looking dinosaur, but then again, Beast Wars Megatron is purple, so As far as tolerance and all that, everything's still good. The head still has that like big old range of motion with the spring-loaded panels, which is nice. Ball jointed hands still work, and then he's still got like full movement in his legs. They can go up, down, out, all that. The little back panel here still tends to pop off as you move the legs, so just be mindful of that. Knees still work well, ankle joints still work well. And then the tail can still wag back and forth, like 2 different areas. So yeah, I mean, the dyno mode is just as quality as it was for Megatron. Everything works the way it should, still looks cool. Oddly enough, the roof of his mouth is done in gray instead of like a more natural looking color. So that's a little disappointing. Would prefer red or something. And that leaves his little 5mm port to attach fire blast effects also gray. Which, yeah, you know, it's a product of the molding and, you know, where they place certain plastic colors. It's not the biggest deal because how often are you going to be like looking deep into the roof of his mouth? But I would have preferred something closer to the color of his tongue, even if that meant painting it like they did the tongue. Oh well. Here's a group shot with Kingdom Megatron in his T-Rex mode, just so you can see, you know, how they compare, how they differ. As far as the plastic color layout, I think they're kind of a one-for-one swap. You get gray where you had bone white, red where you had purple. Inside of Megatron's mouth, so he's actually painted pink, where end has some like pinkish plastic on there. So I guess that's a difference right there in the plastic layout. So yeah, it is disappointing they couldn't color the roof in because they did it really well for him. Then the bigger differences come with like the paint apps. See, Megatron gets his like tan underbelly all painted up like he has on the original toy in the show, whereas T-Rex opts for just keeping it red like the rest of him, which, as you'll see in a moment, creates a little bit of an issue. And then the back pattern, Megatron just gets kind of a faded solid green going on his back, whereas T-Rex gets a much more pronounced, almost like tiger striping with his blue color. So, you know, they managed to both be the same mold, both be T-Rexes, but be pretty distinct from one another, which is always a good thing. That's what you want. Okay, now here's where I start to kind of look at the negatives of this toy. Next to him, we have the original T-Rex from Beast Machines. And he is, in fact, the first ever version of the old Beast Wars Megatron mold I ever owned. So you can see that overall they look very similar, right? Red T-Rex with some blue striping. And the silver coloration on the teeth and claws actually is accurate to the original toy. Something I kind of forgot till just now, so I kind of take back any criticism I had of the gray claws and the teeth. Actually works out really well. But then we start to see some big differences. The most immediate one is the skin tone. They're both red, but the Beast Machines toy is done in a very metallic, very shiny red, whereas his is, you know, much flatter and a little more realistic looking. But then on the inverse, his blue striping is brighter and much shinier, or much more metallic anyway, whereas his is, you know, a lot duller and, while it is kind of shiny still, it doesn't have a metallic quality to it. I actually do prefer, I would say I do prefer the red and the blue used on the new one. It looks less like he's a burn victim, because honestly, the shiny redness, he looks like an overcooked hot dog on the old toy. Now, the one thing that bothers me is that T-Rex has a tan underbelly, much like the Megatron toy. So this one lacking that is a pretty big hit for, you know, the accuracy. And, like, I get it, not everything's always going to be the same, right? And it's okay for something to grow and evolve. But I think, like, inaccuracy due to omission, I don't know if you could ever call that a good thing, right? Like when there's a certain paint app or accessory that's just not there anymore. I think it's just kind of unequivocally a negative aspect of the toy. Another odd change is that the original toy has green eyes, whereas this one uses yellow. And I imagine that was just an artistic change. They just decided yellow looked better. Maybe it stood out more. I don't know. I like it. I do like the yellow for what it is. So I don't know how I feel about the change in eye color. I guess it's just dependent on the person, whether you think the green's better, the yellow's better. So overall, I think T-Rex's Dino mode looks really good. I think it's a shame about the lack of tan on the underbelly. You know, it's just kind of a missing detail that makes him a bit more plain than he should be. The yellow eyes, again, that's up to personal preference if you think they're better, worse, or should have stayed the same. He also does carry over, you know, the mold issues that Kingdom Megatron has, specifically the gappiness around here to allow that articulation. But the one that bothers me more than anything is the knees. I get why they have the gaps in them, which is fine, but the plastic used on the internals of the knees should match his skin color so it doesn't look like he's had some just horrific injury and his knees are just split wide open. Now, with, you know, his interior parts being gray, it looks more like robotic bits underneath, whereas Megatron with his bone white, well, it looks like a very horrible injury. So, yeah, that's something that, you know, obviously isn't going to be fixed by a recolor and is a weakness of the mold itself. So I can't really criticize it too much here. It already exists. We know about it. But, yeah, the tan underbelly would have been a huge plus. And I guess that's really about my only true complaint. I would have liked more paint on the underbelly. Okay, here's T-Rex's robot mode. And here is where we see the greatest departure from his classic toy. The classic toy had a secondary robot color of like this golden tan, and now the new version of T-Rex uses this kind of dark, slightly brownish gray color. I really don't know and don't understand what the reasoning was for changing that, because it's not even the same plastic color used for the claws or anything, so it's not like they were just reusing that. You can see like on the back of the legs, different shade of plastic. So why they opted for this gray coloring, I don't really know, and honestly, it's kind of ugly. Like, it doesn't suit him very well. A more like tannish or goldish color, I think, would work a lot better. So I don't know why that choice was made, and it's definitely a bit of a head scratcher there. One little detail that is pretty cool is that the little gun barrels on his hip blasters are painted this like bright like neon red color, which is the same color as the actual firing missiles from the original toy. So that's a neat callback. They at least got that right. And here's the infamous lipstick we're talking about, right? He's got that like closed frowning face, but his lips are painted over, so he's just got silver lipstick for some reason. And he's got nice yellow eyes. Those are pretty cool looking. And just like the dino eyes, those were originally green. So again, they've made some just kind of arbitrary changes to a lot of his colors, and I really don't get what the reasoning was for that. It'd be like if they released a new Bumblebee toy, but instead of being like yellow with black accents, he's like yellow with purple. like why? Why would you do that? I mean, unless it's meant to be like a new form of the character or something, but like if you're just recreating the classic character, why make such sweeping changes? I don't get it. Now we get our robot mode group shot with Megatron, and as you can see, you know, molding wise, they're exactly the same. Megatron ends up with a lot more painted detail on his inner robot area than T-Rex does. Like all of this is painted here, there. He's got all sorts of paint apps. The only paint apps that T-Rex has on his gray parts are the little silver collar area here and the blue for his hand. And that's it. That's all you get. It especially comes off looking kind of weird when you see that his like bottom crotch piece area is that blue color, but then all the rest of it's gray and there's like no paint, no nothing to break it up. It looks really cheap and also a little awkward for certain reasons. And it's also a shame because on the original toy, this whole area was blue. So why they couldn't take some of that nice blue paint and just paint right here? Like even if it was just the front and maybe like the very back, like don't, you know, just the faces of it, it would have looked so much better. It really seems like they spent all the paint budget on his back stripes. They're like, well, I guess we're out. Oh well. So yeah, I don't know. The one thing he does have over Megatron is that his helmet is actually all one matching plastic color, unlike Megatron, who has purple on the back of his head for some reason. It's kind of weird too, right? Why is his one color but his isn't? I don't think... Well, I guess it is all painted, isn't it? No? I don't know. I don't know if that's paint on the top, that like dark purple or like purplish gray color. Not entirely sure. So he definitely matches, at least, you know, from the front to the back of his helmet a lot better. Of course, it's easy to do that when you don't paint anything, so, you know. And now we get the Beast Machines T-Rex for robot comparison. And this is what I'm talking about, right? Look at this really nice golden sand-like color that's on his legs, his chest. It works so much better than this flat, ugly gray. I don't know why they did it. It's really weird. Here's that like full, like little kind of crotch area I was talking about, which looks way better than what we ended up getting. And another thing worth pointing out is here, you know, they left his head as this red plastic to match the rest of him. And maybe that was due to them just looking at pictures of this guy and not actually holding like the toy in hand. Because his helmet is not red. It's actually done up in this really nice copper painted color. So again, it really looks like they're just cheaping out with the paint apps. They should have painted his helmet that copper color. It just would look better. A lot less samey than, you know, something that blends into like his back kibble. So I think overall my biggest issue with this toy is just lack of paint applications. Like I can even kind of forgive like some of the baffling color changes they made, like the gray, if they at least made it look nice. But there are some areas that just look very unfinished on him, especially in the robot mode. So, I don't know. I don't get it. Not sure why they would do that. Other than to save a few bucks, you know? Another thing to point out here is the head here for the old toy. This face, this big old, you know, teeth-gritting face. That's what the alternate face sculpt for this guy was supposed to look like. It's supposed to emulate pretty much this with the more, you know, show accurate bit of proportions to it. So that's what he should look like right there, especially to help just differentiate him from, you know, the more calculating, you know, Megatron, who's kind of got that quiet, reserved evil about him. T-Rex was known as being a bit of a hothead. When you look at his like old bio info and stuff, he's someone who, you know, fights viciously, loathes Megatron, and loathes the fact that he looks like him. It's like his personal shame to look like Megatron. So that other face sculpt really would have suited his character a lot better. But, you know, something went wrong. I mean, they had the sculpt available and for whatever reason didn't use it. I don't know, was it just factory error or what? The last thing I want to touch on with these two, and this is purely just a matter of like my personal preference. So you can see here that this guy clearly has the mutant head halves, you know, coming off the side of his head. And you can close it up if you want to, if you're curious to see what that looks like, right? Forms like a battle helmet with a horn in the middle. Very reptilian. And, you know, some people might like the mutant head, some don't. It's kind of silly looking because it looks like bat wings on his head. But at the same time, T-Rex, unlike Megatron, was actually shown in fiction to have the mutant head, like have the little bits hanging off. Now, I would have loved if they could have incorporated that on this toy to really further differentiate him from Megatron. Because, like, all they had to do was just have a new, you know, back piece for the head that has hinges that would allow these extra little pieces to be on there. Would have been a really nice touch and help set him apart. Or if that's not doable because maybe there's a clearance issue involved with that because this guy doesn't transform exactly like the old toy, you could just have like a single piece plastic helmet that just kind of slides down on top. Would have looked really cool too. Again, minor nitpick, and it's something that I honestly wouldn't expect, right? I wouldn't expect them to go so far out of their way on what's kind of just a cash grab Target exclusive. But seeing these two together is just kind of a bitter reminder of all the things they could have done with this guy that they just didn't. And just for fun, here's a shot of T-Rex leading his Beast Machines Dinobot teammates into battle. Because if you got it, why not show it off? And yes, that is indeed Beast Wars Neo Magmatron back there, because turns out, if you're around like that early 2000s time frame, Predacon Magmatron, for a brief time, became one of these Dinobots. for no real reason other than so that Hasbro had an excuse to sell him in the US market. It's really all it is. So it was great for us because it was a very cheap option for obtaining this toy that was, Japanese exclusive, and, Japanese only imports were a lot harder to get back in the year like 2000, 2001 or so. So pretty cool thing. And, he just so happens to match the theme of the Dinobots very well as organic dinosaurs. In fact, most of the Dinobot characters were like recolored from his minions anyway. So yeah, neat little bit of trivia and history there for you. And I will say, given this new T-Rex's, more advanced engineering, posability, all that, he makes for a much more dynamic looking leader of this ragtag group than the old toy, which is, kind of very blocky and cumbersome with its kibble. If only he had that nice golden tan color to really sweeten the deal. Okay, and that wraps up our look at the new Transformers Kingdom T-Rex. Now, is this toy cool? Like, yeah. It's a good thing that this toy exists, especially for people that couldn't get, the classic T-Rex toy because they missed out, or maybe they weren't born yet, they're, younger fans. Does it have a lot of problems? Also, yes. Again, it's really hurting with the paint apps. Like, really, really hurts when you compare it to, the older toy and even, his contemporary Megatron. He's just doesn't have a lot going on there, except on his back. That's about it. That's where he gets, like, most of his cool paint apps. And then, again, the changes that I mentioned, especially the tan to gray, it's just weird. I don't get it. It's, in my opinion, not as good as the classic colors. And I get that part's subjective. But still, it leaves you wondering, like, why would you do that? Did you really just be like, what would look better? Dingy gray. That's what this guy needs. I can't imagine that was the thought process. So, the paint, the color choices, definitely wonky. And then there's the fact that they botched the face sculpt, right? They put the wrong one on, either accidentally, intentionally, and if it was intentional, they forgot to take the silver off for the teeth, so now you just got a weird lipstick thing going on. And, overall, it's a good toy that becomes very disappointing in the context of what could have been, right? How great of an update this toy could have been. If he had, the copper-colored helmet, the right secondary color, then robot mode, the tan underbelly. The yellow to green eyes is pretty subjective. I think I actually prefer the yellow, so that's not really a deal breaker for me. So, he's an otherwise great toy held back by some really strange or, at least greedy decisions there. So, is he an absolute must-have? I don't know. I think he's really more for that niche, like, completionist market. People that just, want to have updates to certain characters or, want to complete a whole, like, Kingdom collection. Or maybe people that missed out on T-Rex the first time around and they just want to have a version of him. And, he's serviceable as that. If you don't have the original to compare him to, you're probably not going to feel that kind of nostalgic loss that somebody like me would feel when seeing how much they really took away from this release. So he's not bad. He's standard leader class price, so about $50 or so. And he was a red card exclusive, but they've since lifted that exclusivity online, and they're also just stocking him in stores now. Unlike the last red card exclusive that wasn't really widely available on shelves. This guy's being stocked like all over the place right now. So if you like the idea of kind of an Autobot foil to Megatron, or not, sorry, Maximal foil to Megatron, or just something new, or you just love the Megatron mold because it is a pretty good mold, then I'd recommend picking this guy up. I think you will enjoy him. I think he's different enough to feel like a whole new separate character. And, it lets you just kind of play around with a very interesting, oft forgotten about bit of Transformers history. Of course, as always, that is just how I feel about this toy. Now I want to know what you guys think of him. Is he worth the purchase price? Are you happy with him? Are you disappointed with him? What would you have seen done differently? Would you have included a mutant head, or do you think the mutant head's goofy? Love to get your feedback on that part, because personally I like it, but I also know that might be off-putting to some people. Any and all feedback is always welcome in that comments section. If you enjoyed this review, make sure to toss it a like. Let YouTube know you want to see more stuff like this. If you do want to see more like this, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you'll always get a heads up when I post something new. If you'd like to become a channel member and help support the channel and also get access to members-only live streams, early access to Q&As where I answer questions from members such as yourself, and get a nice little call out at the end of those Q&As for your support, just check out that join button where you can become a member for as little as $1.99 a month. I thank you for joining me for this look at the brand new Target-exclusive Transformers War for Cybertron Kingdom Maximal T-Wrecks. And with all that said, I will see you next time.